So SETI goes private and goes begging. In 1993, it becomes the non-profit SETI Institute in Mountain View, California. Bill Hewlett and David Packard of computer fame provide the seed money. Gordon Moore, a co-founder of Intel, and Paul Allen, a co-founder of Microsoft, each write million-dollar checks. The Institute launches Project Phoenix because SETI has indeed risen from the ashes.
I think the knowledge that we share the universe with other intelligent creatures will change our view profoundly, but it may not happen overnight. We're definitely trying to pursue the search for extraterrestrial intelligence the way that you would pursue any other scientific exploration, and to do it credibly.
And where is science fiction? Carl Sagan uses Dr. Tartar as a model for the astronomer in his book Contact, which later inspires a movie that stars Jodie Foster. In the movie, astronomers receive and decode a signal from an extraterrestrial intelligence far beyond our galaxy. Real life may not be far behind at SETI's new listening post, Frank Drake's old stomping ground, the Arecibo Radio Telescope.
The most fun part of my job is actually when I get to go to the observatory. Arecibo is a very special and unique observatory. The scale of the facility is something that's really hard to appreciate from videos or seen at a distance. You have to stand there. You have to be underneath the thing or 500 feet up in the air on top of it to understand how big and mammoth this is. And then when you're there and this piece of listening equipment is there, nothing else matters.
Computers at Arecibo continuously scan millions of radio frequencies looking for that peripatetic signal emanating from deep space. Tartar was at a computer terminal there one night in 1998 with SETI astronomer Seth Shostak when they think they may have found it.
We got a signal that for a while looked quite interesting. Both Jill Tartar and I, we weren't saying much, but we were paying very, very close attention to what was happening.
When you pass the first layer of filtering, oh well, that's happened before. But by the time you pass the second layer of filtering, that hasn't happened very often. And you really do get intrigued.
It certainly occurs to you that, well, what if this is the big one, you know? Because you're not expecting the big one at that particular moment. You'll never be expecting the big one when it happens, of course. And that gives you a certain amount of pause. You wonder, well, how am I going to react to this? I mean, what if this is it? What am I going to do next? It's a little unsettling.
I don't know if I have so much the, my God, it's me feeling as a reconfirmation that it really could happen. Unfortunately, in each case, it's turned out to be something particularly complex about our own technology that's fooled us.
But no one's giving up yet. SETI has optimistically established a series of protocols if ET ever phones home.
One is make really sure that the signal you've detected is extraterrestrial. That's point one. So it calls for confirmation, very careful confirmation. And point two is you release it immediately to the whole world.
In fact, the information about the existence of an extraterrestrial technology is really quite properly the property of all humankind, that we don't intend to keep it secret.
And as the search for signals from space continues into the 21st century, contact of another kind proves there is life out there, and Percival Lowell was right all along.
Was Genesis a one-time event here on Earth, or is there a second Genesis out there?
For centuries, astronomers have aimed their telescopes into the heavens and wondered about what was on all those faraway stars and planets.
The universe is a big place. When you look at that small patch of sky and see all those galaxies, you see where we fit in the universe.
But land-based telescopes have their limitations. So ever since 1964 and the first Mariner missions, we have tried to get closer to them instead of waiting for them to come to us. First stop, Mars.
Liftoff, 30
Atlas rocket sends the Mariner 4 probe on a 325 million mile, 7-month journey to Mars. Mariner 4 sends back the first close-up views of a planet other than our own.
Early in its history, we see evidence that it had water, that it had a thicker atmosphere, that it was very much like the Earth. So maybe it had life as well.
Mariner 4 has given just a few brief and intoxicating glimpses of Mars. The dual missions of Mariner 6 and 7 in 1969 trained their cameras on the puzzling polar areas of the planet.
Those white polar caps are not water ice, they're carbon dioxide ice. The dark features are not vegetation, they're dust moving around by the wind.
In 1971, when Mariner 9 settles into a geosynchronous orbit around Mars, it becomes the first American spacecraft to orbit around a planet other than Earth. Within 5 years, we are strolling on the red planet, albeit by remote control.
The question of life on Mars or life on any other planets in our solar system or outside of the solar system bears very much on what our place is in the universe. If we're the only ones, the only life in the universe, it's quite a different universe than if it's filled with life.
By 1976, Viking 1 and 2 transmit to Earth a series of images of the vast Martian landscape. The two probes also test the soil for signs of Martian life.
I was not one of those kids that read science fiction since day one, but the science of Viking has got me interested. Spacecraft lands on Mars, looks around for life, doesn't see anything, everybody's dead, there's nothing there, but all the elements needed for life are there. I thought, well, that's kind of odd. It's sort of lights are on but nobody's home sort of message.
But somehow this real proof of life beyond Earth is eclipsed by the public's desire to make science and science fiction merge once more. All eyes turn to this, a seemingly artificial structure on the surface of Mars that bears a striking resemblance to a human face. We want to believe, and for a while we do, but it's just a pile of rocks photographed at Martian sunset. Meanwhile, back on Earth, another discovery would literally rock the scientific community. In 1984, government researchers in Antarctica discover a small meteorite. It looks like a potato, and it comes from Mars. Tests on rock ALH 84001 in 1995 reveal microscopic traces of organic material that might indicate the presence of a past life.
In that rock, the team from Johnson Space Center thinks they found fossils. Now that discussion is still very much open. We don't know for sure if those are fossils, if they aren't. This is one of the reasons why we think life could be carried from Mars to Earth and probably vice versa.
July 4th, 1997. NASA's Pathfinder mobile surveyor lands on Mars.
As we get deeper and more profound in our understanding of Mars, we might be able to find evidence that there was once life there. There's two possibilities when we look at the possibility of life on Mars. One is that we'll go to Mars, we'll find fossils, we'll find life, and it will turn out to be the same as us. A more interesting scenario would be if we go to Mars, we find fossils, we find evidence of life, we find Martian biochemistry in the dead Martians, in their organic material, and we compare it to us and we realize these are truly alien. These are a different type of life. This was the second genesis of life.
In the back of my mind, I always think we are too conservative. And my thought on that is that if you examine the biology of Earth, you realize one of life's prime characteristics is that it's very opportunistic, very adaptable. And so we, in our conservative way, say, oh, life will only exist on planets much like the Earth. And I'll bet you anything, we're going to find worlds where there's life that disobeys one or all of those things.
At what point do you throw in the towel? You know, if you've done this for another 10 or 20 years, are you going to say, okay, we give up, they're not there? And of course the answer to that is no. Just because you haven't found them doesn't mean they're not there.
It has been more than 100 years since Percival Lowell theorized about life on Mars. And although it appears that the advanced civilization Lowell thought might exist was never there, he has left an unwavering legacy in popular culture and in science that lives on.
Lowell was wrong in the detail, but he was right in the big question, and he was right in the planet to go after. He was right in asking the question that searching for life is the interesting thing we should do when we go looking at the stars and go into space. And he was right in supposing that Mars was the first planet that's going to give us meaningful answers. I think if Lowell's spirit is alive today, it's alive in people like me and scientists like us who are searching for life and who see Mars as being the most interesting planet other than the Earth in terms of the story of life.
Just before his untimely death in 1916, Percival Lowell observed what he thought was a ninth planet far out in the solar system. He was right. In 1930, astronomers at the Lowell Observatory verified his sightings of the so-called Planet X and honored his memory by naming the newly found planet Pluto, PL, being taken from the initials of Percival Lowell.
You can use his telescope, walk out the front door, and within about 10 yards is his mausoleum. And so he's, in spirit at least, still watching over the telescope and keeping an eye on us, making sure we look at things he wants to, and takes care of his telescope.